The grand spires of the Vorthan War College loomed against the amber sky of Tijara Prime, their crystalline structures refracting the light of the binary stars overhead. Inside these towering edifices, the future military elite of the Confederation gathered to learn the art of interstellar warfare. Holographic battle archives lined the walls of its vast halls, recording millennia of conflict across thousands of worlds. 6 months after the Great Confederation War had ended with a fragile peace treaty, the college had reopened its prestigious halls to a new initiative, the Interspecies Exchange Program. It was here, in the hallowed corridors of the most exclusive military academy in 7 systems, that Cadet Lisa Marn walked alone. Lisa was human, the only human in the entire college. Her footsteps echoed softly against the polished obsidian floors as she navigated the sprawling campus. Though she'd been there for 3 weeks, the stares hadn't diminished. Vortha cadets with their 4 eyes tracked her movements. Keldric students with translucent skin revealing pulsing organs visibly recoiled when she passed. Trilith upperclassmen clicked their mandibles in what the translation algorithms politely rendered as concerned speculation. She kept her gaze straight ahead, her military posture impeccable. The standard-issue uniform felt restrictive across her shoulders. Deliberately so, she suspected. It had been tailored for Vorthan physiology, not human. The discomfort was by design, like so much else in this place. Professor Kutar's Advanced Strategic Theory lecture hall was her destination. As she entered, the ambient chatter died instantly. 200 alien cadets turned to observe her entrance. She selected her usual seat in the back corner, away from everyone else. It wasn't segregation, it was survival. Professor Kutar entered moments later, his spindly Vorthan frame draped in the ceremonial vestments of a Confederation war scholar. His 4 eyes narrowed slightly at the sight of Lissa, as they did every lecture. She met his gaze evenly, refusing to flinch. "Cadets," Kutar began, his voice amplified throughout the vaulted chamber. "Today, we begin a new instructional module, one that recent events have made, unfortunately, necessary." The holographic display behind him flickered to life, displaying text in the standard Confederation script, "Forbidden Human Tactics, a study in barbaric ingenuity." Lisa's jaw tightened imperceptibly. 3 weeks of veiled insults and coded xenophobia had prepared her for this moment. She'd known it was coming. "The recent conflict has revealed disturbing trends in human combat methodology," Kutar continued, pacing the length of the podium. "Tactics that defy conventional strategic doctrines, methods that ignore millennia of established combat ethics. Today, we examine these aberrations to understand and counter the threat they represent." A murmur passed through the alien cadets. Lisa remained still, her face betraying nothing. "We begin with Exhibit A," Kutar announced, tapping his control pad. "Battle footage from Outpost Helios during the 3rd phase of the war." The holographic projector hummed to life. A 3-dimensional image materialized in the center of the lecture hall, showing a desert landscape. Red dust swirled across rocky terrain. The ruins of a small mining colony smoldered in the background. The timestamp indicated this was from 14 months ago. "Note the conventional Confederation battle formations," Kutar narrated as armored Vorthan troops advanced in perfect geometric patterns across the terrain. "Disciplined, precise, honorable." The footage continued. Suddenly, the swirling desert dust intensified. What had appeared to be a natural sandstorm began moving against the prevailing winds. Within seconds, visibility dropped to near zero. The Vorthan formation faltered. And then, chaos. From within the artificial sandstorm, small drones emerged, each carrying primitive explosive devices. They weren't military-grade, merely mining charges repurposed as weapons. The Vorthan troops attempted to regroup, but their standardized combat protocols failed them in the unexpected conditions. A figure darted through the storm, face covered by a makeshift breathing apparatus, directing the drones with hand signals and what appeared to be a modified agricultural control pad. The image zoomed in on the figure's face as the breathing mask was momentarily displaced. A sharp gasp echoed through the lecture hall. It was Lissa Marn. 200 alien heads swiveled toward the back of the room, where the subject of the footage sat quietly, her expression unchanged. "This," Qatar said with undisguised contempt, "is the face of human tactical barbarism. Weather manipulation combined with civilian equipment, repurposed for military application. No regard for the established rules of engagement." The footage continued, showing younger Lissa orchestrating the complete rout of a Confederation battalion using nothing but mining equipment, agricultural drones, and a manufactured sandstorm. The silence in the lecture hall was absolute. Cadet Brell, a Vorthon senior, with distinguished family lineage, broke the silence. "Professor, is this some kind of provocative educational technique? Placing a war criminal among us as a test?" Lissa spoke for the first time. "The mining colony was civilian. Your forces attacked without provocation." Her voice was calm, measured. "There were 342 non-combatants. I had 42 mining charges and 17 agricultural drones." "And yet," Qatar interrupted, "you managed to neutralize an entire military battalion." "They survived," Lissa noted. "Every one of them. I designed the drone strikes to disable equipment, not personnel." Qatar's upper eyes narrowed, while his lower ones remained fixed on Lissa. "We continue to the next exhibit." The holographic display shifted. Dense jungle canopy replaced desert terrain. The timestamp showed this was 11 months ago, deep in the verdant expanse, a contested region of heavily forested planets. "Here we see the infamous jungle exodus," Qatar narrated. "A human-led civilian evacuation that somehow traversed 100 kilometers of predator-infested swampland while evading 3 Confederation scout battalions." The footage showed a bedraggled column of refugees, humans, but also various allied species. They moved through the dense undergrowth with surprising speed. Following a figure at the front, Lissa again, looking thinner, her hair shorter, a deep scar visible on her left temple that hadn't been there in the previous footage. But most shocking to the alien cadets was what the refugees were doing. They were singing, music, rhythmic, pulsing, with complex harmonies, emanated from the group as they moved. Some were even laughing. What is this behavior?" A Trilith cadet clicked in confusion. "Why produce noise that attracts predators and reveals position?" The footage continued, showing how the coordinated sounds created sonic patterns that actually confused the native predator's sensory organs. The music, specifically designed frequencies, disrupted the hunting patterns of the local fauna. Meanwhile, the laughter, so alien to Confederation species, created a psychological buffer that kept exhaustion and despair at bay. "Psychological warfare against the environment itself," Qatar observed coldly, "using cultural expressions as tactical tools." The footage showed Confederation scout ships passing overhead, unable to detect the refugees through the thick canopy. When ground forces were deployed, they followed standard search protocols and walked directly into areas where the refugees had deliberately lured predator swarms using modified sonic attractants. Again, no Confederation soldiers died, but none completed their mission either. Lissa felt the stares intensify. The scar on her temple itched under the scrutiny. "This defies all established evacuation protocols," Cadet Brell declared, turning to face Lissa directly. "The use of indigenous fauna as combat multipliers violates Section 47 of the Confederation Rules of Engagement. The rules of engagement presuppose both parties are engaged in combat." Lissa replied evenly. "We were refugees, civilians, running for our lives." "With remarkable tactical acumen for civilians," Qatar noted dryly. "Necessity breeds innovation," Lissa said. "Indeed." Qatar tapped his control pad again. "Which brings us to Exhibit C." The holographic display changed once more. This time, it showed the cold vacuum of space. A massive Confederation cruiser hung against the backdrop of stars. Approaching it was a civilian transport vessel, damaged, venting atmosphere from multiple hull breaches. "The orbital incident at Proxima Station," Qatar announced, "where human infiltrators brazenly boarded a Confederation military vessel under the guise of seeking emergency aid." The footage showed the civilian transport docking with the cruiser. Emergency protocols had been followed. The Confederation military was bound by interstellar law to render assistance to vessels in distress, regardless of species. The timestamp indicated this was 8 months ago, at the height of the conflict. The interior cameras of the cruiser activated, showing the arrival of the refugees. Among them, unmistakably, was Lisa, thinner still, her hair now completely shorn, new scars visible on her exposed arms. She and her companions wore what appeared to be ordinary civilian attire. As they were escorted through the ship's corridors, the footage revealed the true nature of their equipment. Their boots contained jury-rigged magnetic components, allowing them to function in zero-G combat. What looked like food containers actually held a strange brown powder. "Observe the human use of deception," Qatar narrated, "weapons disguised as civilian necessities." The footage continued, showing the moment when the ship's artificial gravity temporarily failed during a routine system diagnostic. While the Confederation crew struggled to adapt to the sudden zero-G conditions, Lisa and her team activated their magnetic boots and moved with practiced efficiency. The brown powder, ground coffee beans, according to the footage analysis, was released into the air circulation system. The stimulant properties of the caffeine, combined with the particulate irritation to non-human respiratory systems, created momentary confusion among the crew. Within minutes, Lisa's team had reached the bridge, locked down critical systems, and effectively captured the vessel without firing a single conventional weapon. "Madness," a Keldric cadet whispered. "Brilliant madness." Lisa sat silently as the footage showed her younger self addressing the ship's captain, explaining that they required the vessel to evacuate civilians from a contested colony. The footage included her promise to return the ship undamaged once the evacuation was complete. A promise that, according to the mission logs displayed alongside the video, had been kept. Chemical warfare, technological subterfuge, and blatant violation of military boundaries. Qatar summarized, his contempt palpable. "This is the nature of human combat methodology." "Not combat," Lisa corrected quietly. "Survival." Qatar turned all 4 eyes toward her. "Perhaps you would care to explain the distinction to your fellow cadets, since you feature so prominently in our educational materials." Lisa considered for a moment, then stood. All eyes followed her as she walked to the center of the lecture hall, taking position beside the still active holographic display. "The distinction," she began, her voice clear and measured, "is one of intent. Conventional warfare, as taught in this institution, presupposes equal participants, agreed-upon rules, and mutual recognition of conflict parameters." She gestured to the frozen image of herself on the cruiser bridge. "What you're seeing is not warfare as you understand it. It's adaptation in the face of extinction. There were no rules because we never agreed to play the game. We were simply trying to stay alive." A murmur passed through the cadets. Qatar's upper eyes narrowed dangerously. "A convenient rationalization for barbarism," he said. "An accurate description of desperation," she countered, "which is something this curriculum fails to address. The psychology of the cornered, the abandoned, the betrayed. These are tactical considerations as important as any formation or weaponry." Qatar studied her for a long moment. Then, to everyone's surprise, he smiled thinly. "Perhaps a demonstration would be more instructive." Lisa's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes hardened. "Tomorrow," Qatar announced to the lecture hall, We will conduct a live simulation. Cadet Marn will reenact one of her more notorious tactical innovations, the defense of mining outpost Kappa 9. She will utilize only the resources available in that historical scenario. He turned to Lissa. Against her will, be a selection of our finest tactical cadets, operating under standard Confederation protocols. This should provide an illuminating comparison of methodologies. The alien cadets erupted in excited chatter. Lissa stood perfectly still. Unless, Qatar added with false concern, you feel such a demonstration would be unfair to you? Lissa met his gaze squarely. I accept the parameters, she said simply, then returned to her seat. As the lecture concluded, and cadets filed out, excited discussions about tomorrow's simulation echoed through the hall. Only one cadet approached Lissa. To everyone's surprise, it was Brel. You realize this is designed for your humiliation, the Vorthan cadet said without preamble. I'm aware, Lissa replied, gathering her materials. He selected the best tactical minds in the senior class to oppose you. That seems logical. Brel studied her with all four eyes. You don't seem concerned. Lissa finally looked up at him. Should I be? The defense of Kappa 9 is legendary, Brel said. But it was achieved with the element of surprise and against standard troops. Tomorrow you face elites who have studied your methods. Lissa nodded. True, but they've studied what I've done, not why I did it. She stood to leave. That's the difference Qatar doesn't understand. Tactics flow from necessity, not doctrine. As she walked away, Brel called after her. Why are you even here, human? In this college that clearly despises you? Lissa paused, but didn't turn around. To learn, she said simply, and continued on her way. That night, while the rest of the academy slept, Lissa sat alone in her quarters, eyes closed in meditation. On her wrist, a small device flickered with a holographic interface, a map of the academy complex, with certain sections highlighted in red. She swiped through several screens, examining security protocols and system access points. This wasn't just preparation for tomorrow's simulation. It was the continuation of a much longer game. Memoria, she whispered, activating the hidden AI interface embedded in her personal communicator. Technology far beyond what the Confederation believed humans possessed. Present, Lissa, a soft voice replied. Show me the original surveillance footage from the Verdant Expanse Exodus. Full spectrum analysis. The AI complied, projecting a private holographic display. Lissa studied the unedited footage, sections that Qatar had conspicuously omitted from his classroom presentation. Footage that showed why they had been running in the first place. Footage of a Confederation pacification operation that had been anything but peaceful. Isolate facial recognition on commanding officers, Lissa instructed. The AI highlighted several Vorthan military officials, including a high-ranking general who had personally overseen the operation. Cross-reference with current Vorthan War College personnel files. The AI worked silently for a moment, then highlighted a match. General Thay, currently serving as Senior Military Ethics Advisor at the Vorthan War College. Lissa's expression hardened. Thank you, Memoria. That will be all. The holographic display vanished, leaving Lissa alone in the darkness. She resumed her meditation, preparing not just for tomorrow's simulation, but for the true purpose of her presence at the academy. Justice had a patient advocate in Cadet Lissa Marn. The simulation arena stood ready the following day, a massive enclosed space capable of recreating various battle environments. For today's exercise, it had been configured to match the mining outpost Kappa 9 scenario, a small industrial facility nestled in rocky terrain, with limited resources and multiple approach vectors. The stands surrounding the arena were filled with cadets from all years of study, faculty members, and even some visiting Confederation officials. The defense of Kappa 9 had become something of a legend in military circles, a case study in asymmetric warfare that had humiliated a Confederation rapid response team. Lissa entered the arena wearing the same standard cadet uniform as always. No special equipment. No tactical gear. She carried nothing but a small utility pouch, the same limitation she'd had during the actual historical event. Qatar stood on a raised platform, addressing the assembled audience. Today, we witness a practical demonstration of contrasting military philosophies, he announced. Cadet Marn will reenact her defense of mining outpost Kappa 9, utilizing only the resources available in that scenario: mining tools, industrial components, and her own ingenuity. He gestured to the opposite side of the arena, where 20 elite cadets from various species stood in formation, fully equipped with standard Confederation tactical gear. Opposing her will be a select team of our finest tactical students, operating under orthodox Confederation protocols. They have studied the historical event extensively and are prepared for any repetition of those tactics. Lissa surveyed the outpost layout. It was remarkably accurate to her memory. The administration building, the processing center, the storage facilities, the exposed ventilation systems. The simulation technology had even recreated the distinctive red dust that clung to every surface. Cadet Marn will have 30 minutes to prepare her defenses, Qatar continued, after which the opposing force will attempt to secure the facility. Success is defined as maintaining control of the central administration building for 1 hour. He turned to Lissa. Do you understand the parameters, Cadet? Perfectly, Professor, Lissa replied evenly. Then your preparation time begins now. As Lissa moved into the outpost, the audience settled in to watch through the arena's transparent observation shields. Floating camera drones followed her movements, projecting her actions onto large displays for all to see. She appears remarkably calm for someone facing such overwhelming odds, observed a senior faculty member. Humans often display false confidence before failure, Qatar replied dismissively. It's a psychological defense mechanism. In the arena, Lissa worked with quiet efficiency. She inspected the mining equipment, testing the functionality of drills, sorters, and atmospheric filters. She examined the outpost's rudimentary communication system. She studied the ventilation layout. But, most surprisingly to the observers, she spent a significant portion of her preparation time simply sitting in the center of the administration building, eyes closed, listening. What is she doing? A confused Trilith cadet clicked. Meditating, perhaps, suggested another. Some human religious practice before battle? Brel, watching intently from the front row, shook his head. She's listening to the environment, learning its acoustics. As the preparation time neared its end, Lissa finally began implementing visible defenses. She repositioned mining equipment at strategic points. She reconfigured the communications array. She adjusted the atmospheric processing systems. None of it seemed particularly impressive to the watching cadets. Many exchanged puzzled glances, wondering if the legendary defense of Kappa 9 had been exaggerated. Preparation time has concluded, Qatar announced. The opposing force may now begin their approach. The 20 elite cadets activated their tactical gear and began a textbook multi-vector advance on the outpost. They moved with precision and coordination that demonstrated years of rigorous training. Lissa retreated to the administration building and sealed the main entrance. On the observation screens, she could be seen calmly taking a seat at the communications console. This will be brief, Qatar remarked with satisfaction. Her historical tactics relied on surprise and the inexperience of her opponents. Neither advantage exists today. The advancing cadets reached the outpost perimeter. They paused, scanning for traps or ambushes, finding none of the expected defensive measures. They proceeded cautiously toward the main structures. And then, Lissa activated the outpost's communication system. Her voice echoed throughout the facility, but it wasn't issuing threats or demands. She was laughing. The sound of human laughter, amplified through the outpost speakers, created an immediate psychological effect on the advancing cadets. They hesitated, confused by this unexpected response to their approach. A primitive attempt at psychological warfare, Qatar dismissed, easily countered. But Lisa's laughter wasn't random. It had a peculiar quality, rising and falling in specific patterns, creating harmonics that interacted with the outpost's structure in surprising ways. The red dust covering the facility began to vibrate in response to these acoustic patterns, rising into the air in swirling clouds. Visibility dropped rapidly. The advancing cadets faltered, their formations disrupting as the engineered dust storm reduced their sensory capabilities. Lisa's voice continued through the speakers, now alternating between laughter and humming specific tones that seemed to disorient the non-human nervous systems of the Confederation species. "She's weaponizing sound," Brell murmured, leaning forward intently. The acoustics she was studying earlier. The elite cadets attempted to regroup, following their training. They divided into smaller units and continued their advance despite the disorientation. As they reached the various outpost buildings, they found the doors sealed, but not reinforced. Standard breaching procedures would easily grant them entry. That was when Lisa triggered the second phase of her defense. The mining equipment she had repositioned activated simultaneously, not as weapons, but as conductors for the outpost's power system. Electricity surged through the metal structures of the facility in controlled pulses, not enough to seriously injure, but sufficient to disrupt the neural interfaces of the cadets' tactical gear. Their heads-up displays flickered. Communication systems crackled with interference. Motion sensors delivered false positives. In the stands, the audience watched in growing amazement as the elite cadets' perfect formation deteriorated into confusion. They were fighting not against conventional defenses, but against the environment itself, transformed by Lisa's understanding of its properties. "This is unorthodox," admitted one of the faculty observers. "It's barbaric," Qatar insisted. "Lacks any proper military structure." The elite cadets, determined to complete their mission despite the challenges, regrouped once more. They disabled the affected equipment and prepared to breach the administration building where Lisa had barricaded herself. As they approached the final door, Lisa's voice came through their own communication systems. She had somehow patched into their secure frequency. "Consider this," her calm voice said. "You're fighting against a single opponent who has turned your advantages into liabilities. What happens on a real battlefield when your doctrine fails you?" The cadets hesitated, then proceeded with the breach. The door to the administration building opened, revealing Lisa sitting calmly at the console, unarmed. "I've been controlling everything from here," she explained as they surrounded her. "The dust resonance, the power surges, the communication intrusions. One person, using the environment itself as a defense system." The lead cadet, a Vorthan senior with distinguished combat ratings, stepped forward. "You are defeated. The facility is ours." Lisa smiled. "Is it?" At that moment, the environmental controls throughout the outpost activated simultaneously. The temperature regulation systems, the atmospheric processors, the filtration units, all began cycling in a synchronized pattern that created rapidly alternating zones of pressure throughout the facility. The effect was immediate. The cadets' inner ear analogs, regardless of species, experienced sudden disorientation. Many staggered, struggling to maintain balance. "This facility processes minerals," Lisa explained, still seated calmly. "It's designed to create precise environmental conditions for extraction and refinement. I've simply repurposed that functionality." She stood up slowly. "I haven't deployed a single conventional weapon. I've injured no one. I've simply used what's already here in ways you didn't anticipate." The lead cadet attempted to approach her, fighting through the disorientation. Before he could reach her, Lisa pressed a final control. The lighting throughout the facility began to pulse in a specific pattern, one that research had shown created mild sensory overload in most Confederation species. Combined with the pressure fluctuations and acoustic resonance, it rendered the remaining cadets temporarily incapacitated. Not injured, not defeated through violence, simply unable to function effectively in an environment that had been turned against them. In the observation stands, silence had fallen. What they had expected to be a quick demonstration of superior Confederation tactics had become something else entirely. A masterclass in adaptive defense using minimal resources. Qatar stood rigid, his 4 eyes fixed on the scene below. His carefully orchestrated humiliation had transformed into something unexpected. "The simulation concludes," announced the automated system. "Objective maintained. Defense successful." As the environmental effects subsided and the elite cadets recovered, Lisa walked calmly toward the exit of the arena. She had made her point without a single word of gloating or triumph. The silence in the stands broke into a mixture of reactions: shocked whispers, grudging admiration, and confused debate about what they had witnessed. Brell caught up to Lisa as she left the arena. "That wasn't how the historical defense of Kappa 9 occurred," he said quietly. "No," Lisa agreed. "That defense involved explosives and casualties. I improved upon it." "Why?" Lisa paused, considering the Vorthan cadet. "Because the point isn't to repeat the past. It's to evolve beyond it." Before Brell could respond, Qatar approached, his posture rigid with barely contained fury. "A theatrical display," he said coldly, "but hardly representative of proper military engagement." "It wasn't meant to be," Lisa replied. "That's the point you keep missing, Professor. Humans don't fight the way we do because we prefer barbarism. We fight that way because conventional doctrine failed to protect us." Qatar's upper eyes narrowed. "You defend a species that butchers without mercy, that ignores established rules of engagement, that was betrayed by the very institutions that created those rules," Lisa interrupted, her voice finally showing emotion. "My homeworld wasn't a military target, Professor. It was a civilian colony abandoned to destruction because it was politically expedient." The gathering crowd of cadets and faculty fell silent, sensing the tension rising between student and teacher. "You speak of rules while showing us footage of desperate people trying to survive the consequences of those rules being broken. Not by us, but by the Confederation itself." Qatar drew himself up to his full height. "You dare accuse the Confederation of—" "I don't need to accuse," Lisa cut in. "I can prove it." She activated her personal communicator, and a holographic display appeared in the air between them. "Memoria," she said clearly. "Access Confederation Military Archive. Operation Dustfall. Authorization code Epsilon 9 Theta." The gathered crowd gasped. Those were highest-level military access codes. Codes a mere cadet should never possess. The holographic display flickered, then stabilized, showing classified Confederation military footage. It displayed a planning session for what was labeled Pacification Operation Colony Diaspora. In the footage, Confederation military officials discussed the strategic necessity of neutralizing certain civilian colonies that had refused evacuation during the early stages of the war. One official stood out, a Vorthan general issuing specific orders for the operation. "Maximize psychological impact," the general instructed in the recording. "These colonies must serve as examples to any who would resist Confederation protection protocols." The footage continued, showing the systematic destruction of civilian infrastructure, not military targets, schools, hospitals, residential sectors. Lisa froze the playback on the face of the general. "General Thay," she said clearly, "currently serving as senior military ethics advisor at this very institution." A shocked murmur ran through the crowd. Many eyes turned toward the back of the gathering, where the mentioned general stood, his 4 eyes wide with shock and recognition. "These are the actions that created the desperate survivors you've been studying as barbarians," Lisa continued, her voice steady despite the emotion visible in her eyes. These are the violations of your own ethical codes that forced us to adapt or die. Security officers moved quickly toward General Thay, whose posture had shifted from shock to calculating assessment of escape routes. This is the context your War College curriculum conveniently omits, Lisa continued, addressing the stunned cadets rather than Qatar. The reason behind the improvised tactics, the desperate measures, the unconventional approaches that so confound your doctrines. Qatar stood speechless as his carefully constructed narrative collapsed around him. The security officers had reached General Thay, who offered no resistance. The evidence was too clear, the witnesses too numerous. "I didn't come to your War College to learn your tactics," Lisa said, addressing the entire gathering now. "I came to ensure you learn from ours. To understand that rigid doctrine without ethical foundation isn't strength, it's vulnerability." In the days that followed, the Vorthan War College experienced the kind of upheaval it had never before witnessed in its centuries-long history. General Thay was placed under investigation, along with several other high-ranking officials implicated in the classified footage Lisa had revealed. Professor Qatar's Forbidden Human Tactics course was suspended pending comprehensive review. Most significantly, a new course was added to the curriculum: Adaptive Ethical Response in Asymmetric Conflicts. Its first instructor would be Cadet, now promoted to Adjunct Professor, Lisa Marn. Brell found Lisa in the Academy archives late one evening, reviewing historical battle records with a critical eye. "The faculty is still in shock," he said by way of greeting. "Half of them want you expelled. The other half want to study your methods directly." Lisa looked up from her work. "And you? Which half are you in?" Brell considered for a moment. "Neither. I want to understand." "Understand what?" "How you orchestrated all of this." He gestured around them. "Your presence here, Qatar's course, the simulation, the revelation about General Thay. None of it was coincidence, was it?" Lisa studied him for a long moment, then smiled slightly. "Sit down, Brell. You've earned some truth." She activated her wrist device, the one that had appeared to be a standard communicator, but was clearly much more. A holographic display appeared between them, showing a complex network of connections, personnel files, security protocols, curriculum decisions, scheduled inspections. "I've been planning this for 14 months, she explained quietly. "Since the destruction of my home colony." "You manipulated your own acceptance into the exchange program," Brell realized, studying the display, "and ensured that certain footage would be available in the archives for Qatar to find." Lisa confirmed. "His xenophobia was predictable. I simply provided the materials that would trigger it in a useful direction." "The simulation?" "Was always going to be his response. His personality profile indicated a 93% probability he would attempt public humiliation rather than academic debate." Brell's four eyes blinked in synchronized surprise. "You have access to psychological profiles of Confederation faculty?" Lisa's smile turned sad. "There's a great deal humans have access to that the Confederation doesn't realize. We've been underestimated at every turn. It's both our greatest vulnerability and our greatest advantage." "But why go through all this?" Brell asked. "Why not simply present the evidence against General Thay to the proper authorities?" "Because evidence can be buried. Reports can be classified. Individual criminals can be quietly retired or reassigned." Lisa's eyes hardened. "But a public revelation, witnessed by the next generation of Confederation military leadership, that creates change that can't be undone." Brell studied the holographic display with new understanding. "You weren't just after Thay. You're trying to change the entire Confederation military doctrine." "From within," Lisa agreed, "using its own structures and hierarchies." "That's ambitious." "It's necessary. For lasting peace rather than temporary ceasefire." Brell was silent for a moment, processing the implications. There's more you haven't revealed, isn't there? About who you really are. Lisa deactivated the holographic display. What makes you say that? Authorization code Epsilon 9 Theta. That's not something any survivor of a destroyed colony would have. That's highest-level command access. She regarded him thoughtfully. You're more perceptive than most of your peers. Cadet Brell. Who are you, Lisa Marn? Really? After a long moment, Lisa reached into her collar and withdrew a small pendant that had been hidden beneath her uniform. It contained a microcrystal that, when activated, projected a tiny holographic crest, the insignia of the ruling council of a human colony world. My full name, she said quietly, is Lisa Marn Alteris. I was, heir to the governing council of Diaspora Colony, the last surviving member of that council. In fact, Brell's eyes widened. You're not just a cadet or a survivor. You're a political leader without a population to lead, she finished for him. A government in exile consisting of one person, officially declared dead in Confederation records, which made infiltrating your systems considerably easier. What is your actual goal here, beyond exposing Thay? Lissa replaced the pendant beneath her uniform. To ensure that what happened to my world never happens again. To any world, of any species. She stood, gathering her materials. The Confederation military doctrine is fundamentally flawed. Brell. It values order over justice, procedure over ethics. That must change if this peace is to last. And you believe you can change centuries of military tradition by yourself? Not by myself, Lysa said, looking at him meaningfully. Change requires allies. People within the system who recognize its flaws and work to correct them. Brell held her gaze. People like me, you mean? That depends entirely on you. Before Brell could respond, Lysa's communicator, her real one, chimed softly. She checked the message and nodded. The Confederation Security Council has officially announced an investigation into the alleged war crimes revealed at the Academy. She informed him. The first domino falls. There will be resistance, Brell warned. Powerful figures who benefited from the old ways. Of course, Lisa agreed. Which is why what happens here, at this academy, with the next generation of military leaders, is so crucial. She fixed him with an intense gaze. The question, Cadet Brell, is where you stand, with the doctrine that failed, or with the change that must come. Brell considered for a long moment. The defense of Kappa 9, he said finally. The real one, not the simulation. How many casualties were there? 17 Confederation soldiers died, Lisa answered honestly, along with 9 colonists. And if you had to do it again? I would try to find a better way. That's what the simulation was really about, showing that adaptation can be both effective and less lethal. Evolution rather than repetition. Brell nodded slowly. Then I stand with evolution, Professor Marn. Lissa smiled, a genuine expression that transformed her usually reserved features. Then there's hope for the Confederation yet. 3 months later, the lecture hall where Qatar had once presented his Forbidden Human Tactics course now hosted a very different class. The holographic display showed not combat footage, but comparative analysis of conflict resolution methodologies across species. Professor Lissa Marn stood at the podium, addressing a full audience of cadets from all years of study. Adaptive ethics isn't about abandoning structure, she explained. It's about ensuring that structure serves justice, rather than merely order. The flexibility of human tactics isn't a weakness or barbarism. It's a strength that can be integrated into Confederation doctrine to create something better than either approach alone. In the front row, Brell sat alongside a growing cohort of cadets who had embraced Lysa's revolutionary ideas. Behind them, several faculty members, initially skeptical but increasingly convinced, took notes. The Great Confederation War ended with a peace treaty, Lysa continued. But lasting peace isn't built on paper. It's built on understanding, on justice, and on the willingness to evolve beyond the failures of the past. As she spoke, her hidden communicator received a message from Memoria. Council Phase 2 approved. Diplomatic channels opening for human integration into Confederation leadership structures. Lysa allowed herself a small smile as she continued her lecture. The path to justice was long, but she had taken the crucial first steps. The revolution she had planned wouldn't be won through conventional warfare. It would be won in classrooms, in council chambers, in the minds of the next generation. And as she looked out at the rapt faces of cadets from species that had once been enemies, Lisa Marn Alteris, last heir of a destroyed world, saw something she had almost forgotten existed. Hope.